You ever feel like you're just grinding away at your job, but not really getting anywhere? Well, today we're going to talk about how to break that cycle. We're going to look at how to shift from constantly reacting to everything to actually taking intentional, deliberate action in your professional life. Let's get into it.
So let me just start with a question for you. Think about your workday. Do you ever feel like you're just a pinball bouncing from one thing to the next? Like you're being completely controlled by your email inbox, by the constant pings and notifications, instead of the other way around? If that sounds familiar, you might be in what we call a passive-reactor state. You know that feeling, right? That constant low-grade stress of being on high alert, just waiting for the next fire to put out. It's totally draining, and honestly, it is a fast track to burnout. But here's the good news. This is the real game changer. Your mindset, it's not set in stone. It's not some treat you're born with. It's a skill. It's something you can practice and build, and it's a choice you get to make every single day. You really do have the power to control your inner world, even when the outside world feels completely chaotic. So, okay, where do we even begin with this? Well, the first big shift is all about mastering the most important conversation you'll have all day long, and that's the one that's happening right inside your own head. Seriously, in today's high-stakes world, that inner monologue is probably your most powerful tool. Check this out. It can be so simple. This little trick is sometimes called the yet strategy. So you're facing a really tough project, and your brain immediately goes, I can't do this. Boom, that's a wall. It's a dead end. But what happens if you just add one tiny word? I can't do this yet. You see what happened? That wall just turned into a hurdle. It's no longer a permanent limit, it's just a temporary learning curve. And that right there, that's the heart of a growth mindset. It's all about reframing. It's about seeing every single challenge not as some big, scary threat, but as a chance to, well, to get better. Suddenly, feedback isn't criticism, it's a gift. And obstacles, they're not in your way, they are the way. All right, let's talk about our second mindset shift. This one's all about changing your relationship with mistakes and failure. And look, this one can be really tough, especially if you're a high achiever, but it is absolutely critical if you want to be in this for the long haul. So here's the thing. Being a top performer isn't about never messing up, it's about what you do after you mess up. This idea of seeing failure as data is the perfect follow-up to that yet strategy. Yet gives you the permission to try something new, and this mindset makes it okay if you don't nail it on the first try. A resilient mind doesn't see a mistake as proof of incompetence. It sees it for what it is, high-value data. I mean, Oprah really just says it all here, doesn't she? Real progress never happens where you're comfortable. The breakthroughs, the innovation, all the good stuff, it requires you to push right into that feeling of uncertainty and see it as a necessary step for success, not something to run away from. Okay, time for shift number 3. This is a big one. It's about connecting the things you do every day, you know, the emails, the reports, the meetings, to a bigger sense of purpose. It's how you go from just checking off a to-do list to feeling truly engaged in your work. We're talking about purposeful engagement, and there's actually a ton of science that backs this up. Self-determination theory shows that we humans are most motivated when we feel we have autonomy, competence, and a real connection to others. So finding purpose in your work is really about tapping into those core human drives. But how do you actually do that on like a random Tuesday afternoon? Well, you can start by asking yourself these 3 specific questions. First, how does my work, this specific task, move the company's mission forward? Second, how does what I'm doing improve the customer's experience even in a tiny way? And third, and this one's my favorite, which of my core values did I get to express today? Answering these helps you connect the dots between the small stuff and the big picture. On to our 4th shift, and I gotta say, this one might be the most counterintuitive, especially in our always-on hustle culture. We're talking about rest. I like to call this the productivity paradox. The idea that to get more done, sometimes you have to do less. Yep, look at that number, 7 to 9 hours of sleep. For anyone in a role that requires sustained high performance, this is non-negotiable. It's not a luxury, it's a professional requirement. You simply cannot make clear, high-stakes decisions when you're exhausted. And this is really the key point I want you to take away. Rest is not the enemy of work. It's not what you do when you're finished. Rest is an active, essential part of doing great work. It's a force multiplier. It sharpens your thinking, it boosts your creativity, and it makes everything you do produce better.
And that brings us right to the central idea that really pulls all of these shifts together. A tough, resilient, and constructive mindset, it's not something that just happens to you. It's something you have to actively build. It's something you engineer, choice by choice, every day.
So let's do a quick recap. Here's your new toolkit. Number 1, master that inner voice with the yet monologue. 2, reframe failure as data to build up your resilience. 3, find your purpose by connecting daily tasks to your values. 4, treat rest like the weapon it is. And finally, pivot your focus away from just spotting problems to actively finding solutions.
But please, remember this. This isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. You don't just watch this and poof, you're fixed for life. This is a daily practice. It takes real, conscious effort to choose to be intentional instead of reactive, especially when things get crazy.
So, I'm going to leave you with a little challenge, just a final thought. Look back at those shifts we talked about. Which one makes you feel the most uncomfortable? The one that your brain is already making excuses for? Okay, now ask yourself this. What do you think would happen if you just committed to practicing that one shift for just 1 week?